Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name is Sandra Sainonge, and I'm the marketing manager for Strategic Risk Solutions. SRS is the leading insurance company manager, globally speaking, in the captive insurance industry. So today we have Chloe Goillau with us. Hi, Chloe. Thanks for joining us.
Sandra.
Chloe is a senior actuarial consultant at SRS. And Chloe, it's so nice to meet you. I know we've met once before at the European Captive Forum and have worked on a few projects together. So it's great to have you join us. I'd love to talk a little bit about yourself and you as an actuarial consultant, what that is, what you do on a day-to-day, because I feel like the perception of an actuary is definitely different than what it has been in the past. So could you start with telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long you've been at SRS?
Yes, sure. Thanks for having me on the podcast, Sandra. So as you said, I'm a senior actuarial consultant here at SRS. I spend my days working from home in my little office in London, accompanied by my fluffy friend, my dog Tiggy.
Oh, hi, Tiggy. Welcome to the podcast.
I originally studied for a master's in civil engineering, and I made the jump over to actuarial science after my sister, who's an underwriter, recommended it as a career. I kind of fell into actuarial science as it was, doing a summer internship, and then I got a grad job, and I didn't look back. The civil engineering does actually come in handy a lot, though. It gives me a good founding knowledge on all different types of risk, from climate change to when people are talking about oil rigs. It's nice to have the bit of background knowledge that the degree offered me.
Oh, that's great. It's always nice when you start with something and then go to, what might be considered a huge change, but then can always lean back on that. I think that's great.
Yeah, definitely.
So how long have you been at SRS?
I've been at SRS for coming up to a year and a half now. I'm part of the European consulting team. So we get involved in a wide range of projects, from viability and feasibility assessments of companies considering setting up a captive to risk finance optimization studies, reserve reports, and regulatory reporting.
So yeah, it sounds like the consulting team in Europe does a lot of great work, and it's across many countries. I know you said you're based in the United Kingdom. Derek Bridgman, who is one of our heads of the consulting group, I know he's in Ireland. We have some other people in Luxembourg, France, the Netherlands. So it's pretty spread across, and it sounds like it's a wonderful team built of tons of experts. So I think in talking with you, I want to learn more about actuarial support within a business. So can you give me a little bit of a breakdown as to what an actuarial consultant does and then how it could impact somebody's business? Why is it important to a business?
Sure. So I think the role of actuarial consultant has changed a lot, even through my relatively short career. There have been some great improvements in how actuarial work is approached and embedded into the day-to-day running of companies. My role used to be 90% regulatory focused and 10% what I term value adding, or actually getting into the weeds of a company and working out where the pinch points are and where analysis can really help. And happily, that focus is now shifting.
Okay. And what do you mean by shifting?
It's not necessarily that we're doing less regulatory work, but it's that the work we're doing is no longer just a tick box exercise.
Oh, okay. And that's interesting because then it becomes more beneficial to the business.
Completely. And that's what our aim is, and what makes work a lot more rewarding. I don't want to just be creating a report that sits in the back of your virtual drawer for years on years. I'd much prefer to work alongside a company and create something useful, a lot more rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody feels that in so many different businesses, not just actuarial. But On that topic, though, could you give me an example of what that report would look like in terms of providing a value add, as to use your phrase? What type of value add might something be that a business would get out of an actuarial report?
Sure. So there are so many different reports that we can offer as consultants. So let's take as an example that we are looking at optimizing your captive for you. What we will do is we will look at the moment, what risks you're retaining in the captive, and both quantitatively and qualitatively assess whether A, you're retaining the right risks, or there might be other lines of business that you should be including, and B, also what those retention levels are and whether the program that you've got in your captive is optimal.
So it's really it could be a sort of strategic review of making sure that your captive is functioning as it should, and what other areas a client or a business owner could take to really make sure that the captive is functioning in terms of what is best for the business.
Yeah, so we will take a global view of your company and look at your risk appetite, your risk tolerance, and ensure that what is happening is optimal.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that's something everybody should do, all businesses should do. So
A bit of a health check.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's something that you do within every type of business. So regardless of the industry that you're in, if you have a captive, having an actuarial consultant to review the functionality and making sure that your captive is providing as optimal of service as possible to your business seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, especially as we're very well placed to both look at it on a claim side, so we can model your claims and forecast into the future what we expect to see. But then we can also look at the operational sides and the more qualitative viewpoints as well.
Okay, great. All right, so let me ask this then. So actuarial services has been part of businesses for years and years, right? It goes back a long way. You as a professional in this industry, as a senior actuarial consultant, how has your role evolved from the early days? I know you talked about it went from being all about regulatory stuff to now you're providing value add. Do you see a shift in the role that you play and what seat at what tables you're being given?
Yeah, definitely. If you go back, so 8 years ago, the European Solvency II regulation and its worldwide equivalents came into force. And I would say that the majority of firms at that point would have looked at what an actuary is doing as onerous, cumbersome, and a bit of a pain and just a tick boxing exercise. The process would be that an actuarial firm would be appointed. They would request a lot of data and a lot of information for disappearing off for a couple of weeks and returning with some statutory reporting numbers and a bit of a bland report. Have a bit of backward and forwards with your auditors, maybe a 10-minute presentation at a board meeting, and then the analysis would disappear into the depths of your virtual desk drawer for however long. Probably the report would never be seen again. Nowadays,
That's a lot of work for no visibility.
yeah, and for no communication of the value added. We were finding out important things within those reports. It was just generally wasn't shared. When nowadays it's a lot more common for an actuary to have a permanency at a boardroom table. The actuary is part of the decision making, and our breadth of skills allow us to be well positioned to be at that table, informing and being part of the conversation.
That's great. It sounds like you're helping to really drive the decisions for the business in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Especially as consultants, we find that our clients are coming to us more as advisors throughout the year. They're cognizant that we understand their business, their claims, their risks to such a high level that we can support them in so many different areas and work streams.
And I feel like that's important, especially in this industry. I feel like having a trusted advisor, having a consultant that knows the ins and outs of your business to the expertise that SRS actuarial teams do is crucial to making sure that the business and the captive are functioning as best as possible. So, on that note, tell me a little bit about the actuarial services that SRS provide. You and the other folks on your team do a phenomenal job. And what give me some idea about what an SRS client or a captive owner in general. Give me an idea about what they could do. What questions could they ask? And what could you and your team do to help empower them in terms of controlling and managing their risk?
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, I'm part of the European consulting team, and that team's kind of split into two halves. So, I, alongside my colleagues Natasha Mendez and Leslie Halgago, sit on the actuarial side of the consulting team. Actuaries, we're essentially mystic fortune tellers, kind of, not really. But our jobs do involve forecasting and predicting future events. So we apply statistical techniques to assess the likely outcome of events, playing with risk and big spreadsheets. And then we're working with our colleagues on the consulting side. So Derek Bridgman, as you mentioned, Catherine Anderson and Dominic Halpin, and they look at things more qualitatively. So together, we've got the statistical arm, the qualitative arm, and we can advise on a fair amount of things. So yeah, a lot of the work we do is around looking at the viability and feasibility of companies setting up captives to start with. And then if a captive is already set up, then we can do health checks or risk finance optimization studies where we go in and we check that the programs and the risks that are flowing through the captive are optimal. And then we also do the more regulatory side of things. So we can do the reserve reports and we can do Solvency II reporting and the regulatory roles involved with that.
One of the things that I wanted to ask about was SRS's stance on actuarial services. I know we talked about it a minute ago, but one of the things that I really wanted to kind of touch upon would be that SRS provides some sort of a one-stop shop in terms of the services that we provide: actuarial, captive management, consulting. Can you give us a little bit of insight into how that all works together?
Yeah, sure. So SRS, I think, especially in Europe, actuarial services are at the centre of their management offering. By being able to offer that one-stop shop with the management skills alongside the quite sizable actuarial services we can now offer, we can build great relationships with our clients, learning about their specific businesses, investing the time in fully understanding their key drivers and aims, and then tailoring our support to their individual needs. Currently, there's an increased focus on educating clients around the value actuarial services can provide. For example, we were discussing the health check and the value that can provide clients. Over the past year, a main focus of ours has been refining how we share our output as well to make sure that the reports we provide are useful. So we've invested time in producing visuals and improving the readability of our reports, listening to what our clients are after and adapting the output to reflect what people want to know about. We can, in terms of empowering clients to control and manage their risk, we can help with discussions also about the long-term options, forecasting and helping to produce business plans. We can help inform the big picture, and as actuaries, we then produce the models and we can be involved in discussions around many different structuring options or ideas of what you may want to do next with your captive, from simple things all the way up to sophisticated program design, such as structured reinsurance deals.
That sounds great. I think with the handful of people you mentioned and then all the other people behind the scenes and the others working on these things, SRS's team, from an actuarial standpoint, really does provide the knowledge and the communication to those within this business to really make informed decisions. And I feel like that's something that sets SRS apart is you have the knowledge and the expertise, but you communicate it so well so that business owners, captive owners can make the appropriate decision in terms of, I love the term health check. You've used that a couple of times. I think that this is a great way for them to do the health check, understand the health check as you've provided them the information, and then have the knowledge to make decisions that are best for the captive and for the business. So I feel like the actuarial within these projects plays a vital role in communicating and really making sure that the captive owner has the utmost of importance in terms of information to make educated decisions. That's something that any business can leverage and help to improve. So I think that, this is great in terms of shining a light on what some would consider actuarial to be, as you said, just, chock full of reports that you pass off and then nobody ever really looks at or takes action on. It seems to be that the SRS actuarial team not only creates these informative reports, but then relays the information and then assists with explaining and making sure that the captive owners have what they need to make educated decisions. So I feel like that's great. In terms of what's next for actuarial services or for the consulting team at SRS, is there anything coming up? Is there any, event or anything coming up that you'd be able to share with us?
The AIRMIC Captive Forum is coming up, and we will be heading to that.
Oh, great. So you guys will be there to answer questions, talk about actuarial services. Is that correct?
Yes, Catherine and I will be doing a roundtable discussion on optimizing your reinsurance for your captive, including looking at structured reinsurance.
That's wonderful. So to everybody listening, if you're not attending AIRMIC, feel free to reach out to SRS and ask to learn more about our actuarial services. You can check us out on our website. It's www.strategicrisk.com. Chloe, can't thank you enough for joining us. I always learn something when I meet with you, and I appreciate that. And I think that's probably one of the many, many reasons that you're so good at your job is that you have this wonderful knowledge and expertise, but you also communicate it well and can share it with others to keep everybody in the know and making sure that the program is successful. We appreciate your time today. Should anybody have additional questions or would like to talk with one of our actuarial service people, please feel free to reach out to us. Chloe, I will hopefully have you back on the podcast soon. It's a pleasure as always. Give that puppy a hug for me and we'll talk soon.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everybody.